I think agents get into the business and they buy too many leads, which sounds crazy.
Yeah,
like I say that to people and they're like, well, wait a minute. You mean I shouldn't buy as many leads? I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Because here's what happens, I think. I think agents will try to figure out how many leads can I afford to buy, as opposed to how many leads do I have the time to really work. And it's interesting that at one point in time we had a small captive shop that we were running out of our office. And cool. You know, we did it for a couple of years, and it wasn't that it wasn't working out. We just decided to realign it. But you know, the agents that we had in that captive shop, we would track how many outreaches did they make on people that they closed, how many outreaches were made with people that we never closed. And what was clear was that the average number of outreaches to consumers that we closed on a Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement policy was 6.5.
Wow.
That was the average. And if that's the average, that means for every person that we outreached 4 times, there was someone else that we outreached 8 or 9 times. But you know, and that matches when we look at research or message boards or different things that, you know, there's one lead company that we've done some work with. They have a really cool infographic on their website that I like to reference. Shameless plug for Lead Heroes, because I like those guys.
I was just talking to Glenn literally last week.
But they've got a cool infographic there that I wish every agent would look at. And the way they break down what is your success rate at 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls down the line, that I think the statistic they have, and I hope I'm not quoting them wrong, but it's somewhere along the lines of 80% of the sales are made after the 6th outreach. And it's right, because we've seen it. Like when we were charting it, and I tell agents all the time, you need to figure out what your bandwidth is. How many calls can you make in a week based upon like what your current appointments are that you're running, the different things that you're doing. And you should only buy as many leads as you can call 7 times. Because anything more than that is you're throwing wads of money in a garbage can and lighting it on fire. It is. And agents will write more business doing that than buying more leads. But the problem is agents think to themselves, oh, well, I can afford to buy 6,000 pieces of mail, and I think my return will be 1.5%. And so they start doing that mental math, and they're like, oh, well, if I get 75 leads, then I can generate this many sales. But the problem is that if you have 75 leads, you can only call twice. You're going to generate way less business than if you have 20. You can call 7 times. And that's the single biggest mistake that agents make, is they buy too many leads.
Yeah, that's cool to hear you break it down like that. And I've always heard that, like 80% of sales are made between the 5th and 12th contact. There was a Harvard Business Review published a study done by InsideSales.com that literally validates all the math you're talking about too. Like, yeah, it's and apparently Lead Heroes, right? Which is cool. And I love Glenn; he's a good dude. That's cool, man. Wow, most agents. I like that it's kind of a backwards success principle too. You know, that most are teaching the opposite. But it's like, hey, once you stop and think about, and one of the biggest hurdles we do here, right, which helps support your argument, is, I mean, like naturally, should they have like, less leads or more leads? Well, I mean, yeah, you would want more, but most agents don't have the money to just like overspend on leads and not have success, right? So that does help that, which is cool. Yeah. What's another one that really stands out that agents... It's a pretty, it's still a really big mistake.
So I'm gonna pose this question to you. Okay. Let's say that you and your wife have like 2 other couples, and you guys are regularly like once a month getting together. Maybe it's people you went to college with or people that you worked with earlier in your career, whatever. You got this little dinner club. And let's say that Jim and Susie reach out to you and say, hey, it's our turn to pick the place for dinner. I think we want to go to Bob's House of Colombian Cuisine.
Okay.
What's the first thing you're going to do when they toss it out to you via text? They suggest this restaurant to you. What are you going to do?
Check with my wife.
Okay, check with your wife. What do you think she's going to do?
If we haven't heard of it, we're going to look it up.
Right. What you're going to do is you're going to pull out your phone.
Yeah.
and you're going to Google it and see what their website looks like. Do they have a Facebook page? Do they have images? What are their reviews on Yelp? That type of thing.
Yes.
So I think the reason why I give that example is that I think a lot of times agents will start a lead campaign. It could be direct mail, but most of the time they're doing some sort of digital campaign. And they haven't done the legwork to make sure that when someone goes to check them out, that they look legit. And that isn't even about necessarily like having a website. I think especially in the senior market, this may be different for life insurance producers who are doing term or UL or whatever. Sure. But I think specifically like in the Medicare market, one of the first things a Medicare recipient is going to do is they're going to look you up on Facebook.
That is their primary social platform.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Consumers over 65, I think I read a statistic, 80% of them are on Facebook in the United States.
That's another phenomenal stat. Look at this, dropping some numbers today. This is good.
So, and I didn't even think we were talking about this today, so it wasn't like I was prepped. So, but they're going to go there, and think about it this way. Let's say that you went to look up that restaurant, Cody, and they didn't have a website, but they had a Facebook page. If you looked at their website and the three most recent posts were from 2021 and then like mid-year 2020 talking about how they're closed for COVID, and then 2019 with their dinner specials. Are you going to be super inclined to say we're going to go there?
No, I would think, okay, it's not any good. They closed. They're not that serious. You know what I mean? Like, your brain starts to race.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And so I just had this conversation with an agent the other day. I did a speaking engagement out in Phoenix and was talking about digital footprint, and she called and we started talking about it. And I think from that conversation, I think it reinforces what I think most agents' perspective is.
Yeah.
Is that they don't feel like they have the time to be constantly posting or updating to their Facebook page. They're concerned about, is what I'm going to post compliant?
Yep.
So they don't want to put themselves out there and then potentially get pinched by the Fed.
I think they use that as more of an excuse, but that's 100% comes up.
Those are the two biggest things. I don't have the time, or even if I did have the time,
or compliance.
I'm worried about being compliant. But it's really important that having a digital presence that is up to date is really easy. I mean, we have vendors that we refer our agents to all the time who can regularly post to their channel that requires no time investment from the agent, and it makes them look active on social. So that when someone gets with federal compliance guidelines, now an agent has to have their name on the lead piece. Has to say, coming from Bill Correa, coming from Cody Askins.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you got to have your name on there, or even if you're doing a turning 65 meeting or the 7 questions you never knew, 7 questions or 7 issues you never knew about Medicare or whatever. Yeah. You're doing an in-person event. They're going to look you up.
True.
Putting a minimal amount of effort into that makes every other piece of your lead generation strategy work better. But a lot of times new agents, they just don't think to do it. They don't invest the time in it.
No, and the company that your agents work with, that you have as a resource to help with posting is wildly inexpensive too.
It's $50 a month.
Yeah, it was insane when you told me that when I was at your office in Pittsburgh. I'm like, wait, what? Right? That's the cool thing about it. We could spend days, a 24-hour straight podcast, just talk about all the different services and resources and design team and all the things that you all do for your agents around the country. That was one that stood out to me in a big way. That's cool because you need to be relevant. You need to be active. Yeah,
and it's surprising to me sometimes when our sales team talks to agents about that, and they ask the question, "Do you have a Facebook page for your business?" And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's no. If it's no, we explain to them why they need to do it. If the answer is yes, then immediately sales manager, sales director looks that up, and it's you've got 3 posts since January of 2021. And the current Facebook page makes every aspect of your business work better.
Yeah.
Even in referral generation too, because if you're a newer agent, you need to get as many sales as you can that don't cost you anything. And if your client, Susie, talks to her cousin Gladys about you, what is Gladys going to do? Like Gladys is going to look you up.
Yes.
Even if she trusts, Susie, and Susie's saying, "Oh, this is my Medicare agent. Like, help me so much." Gladys, they're looking you up.
100%.
You have to look relevant. You have to look engaged.
Phenomenal. We don't talk about that enough. Like, that's really freaking important. I'm glad you mentioned that. Hey, welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. Today's guest, I'm going to set it up right today. Okay, I'm going to give you some, like, a clue as Dylan is shooting me. I'm going to give you a clue who we're interviewing today. Incredible freaking guest. A buddy of mine, industry, like, freak. Okay, that's doing a lot of stuff, man. Creator of the Life Insurance Academy,